If you asked my mom, she'd say I was the independent one, which, in our house, was code for we don't really help him much. Or at all. I'm Eli Morgan. 32. Single dad. I build custom furniture out of a rented shop behind a garden supply store. Tables, benches, cabinets. If it's made of wood and doesn't come with Swedish instructions, I've built it. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Clients love the smell of cedar. Me? I love not having a boss. My ex left 2 years ago, moved across the country with a guy named Logan who believes in mushroom farming, and forgot to mention she was taking our tax return with her. I got sole custody of our son Mason, who's 6. Bright kid. Has a habit of lining up his juice boxes like chess pieces. Thinks bugs have names. Thinks bedtime is a suggestion. He's also the only reason I still bother trying with my parents. My mom, Karen, yes, really, is the kind who puts grandkids on Christmas ornaments, but only if they belong to my brother, Todd. Dad? Well, he's been nodding along to whatever she says since 1986. His hobbies include polishing tools he never uses and starting arguments with. Back in my day. Then there's Todd. The golden child. Born first, praised first, failed first, but somehow still treated like the family's CEO. He shows up to barbecues with a Bluetooth speaker in one hand and 3 kids in the other, none of whom know how to sit still or say, "Please." His kids are named things like Jackson, Mila, and Rocket. I wish I were joking. Rocket once kicked Mason in the shin because he was looking at him weird. My mom responded by handing Rocket a juice pouch. So when she invited me to bring Mason over for a family weekend, I hesitated. I just spent the week hand sanding a 12-foot table for a client who had 7 opinions about wood grain. My wrists hurt. My back ached. But Mason missed them. He said he wanted to show Grandma his dinosaur drawing, with extra toes for stomping power. How could I say no to that? We drove up on a Saturday. Suburbs. Bay houses. Manicured lawns. Their porch still had a faded 4th of July flag duct taped to the railing. No one came out to greet us. Inside was chaos. Microwaved lasagna smell, dogs barking somewhere, and Mila screaming because Rocket had the good controller. Mason stood close to me, already overwhelmed. "Grandma," he said, voice bright. Karen walked in from the kitchen, wiping her hands. "Oh, hi, honey," she said, then breezed past him to scoop up Mila. "No. Come here, sweetie." No hug. I nudged Mason. "Go ahead, show her your Dino drawing." He held it up. Karen glanced, nodded once, and said, "You can put that on the fridge later. Right now, can you be a big helper and go check the backyard? The leaves need gathering." I blinked. "Wait, what?" She waved it off. "Just for a little bit. Builds character. Todd's kids already did their chores this week." I looked at the living room. Rocket and Milo were on the couch, playing something loud and slurping juice like tiny hedge fund managers. Todd was on the recliner, scrolling through his phone like the human version of a shrug. "I'll help Mason," I said. Mom stepped in. "You don't need to. He's 6, not made of glass. Let him pitch in. It's good for him." Mason looked up at me, confused. Like he didn't understand why he was being sent outside while the other kids relaxed inside. He didn't cry. He just nodded. And somehow, that made it worse. I followed him out anyway and watched as he dragged a rake twice his size across dead grass like he was prepping for battle. No gloves. No water. Just a 6-year-old with leaves in his hair and questions in his eyes. 5 minutes. That's all I could take. I went back inside. Todd didn't look up. "They need to learn sometime," he said. "Learn what?" I asked. He shrugged. "That not everything's handed to you." I stared at him. At the kids, still on their 3rd snack. At my mom, humming in the kitchen like this was some wholesome family moment, and not a low-budget Hunger Games. Then I said it. 6 words I hadn't planned. "Mason and I are going home." No one protested. Mom looked mildly annoyed. "Suit yourself?" But don't expect him to grow up with manners if you coddle him. I didn't reply. Just packed up our things, ruffled Mason's hair, and said, You ready, buddy? He nodded again. We left. No hugs. No goodbyes. Just the sound of the door closing behind us like a final verdict. That night, I made him pancakes for dinner and let him fall asleep on the couch watching dinosaur documentaries. He slept curled up with the drawing in one hand and the rake in the other like some weird little trophy. And that was the moment I decided something. They weren't family anymore. Not really. Not to us. Not where it counted. After that weekend, I didn't block their numbers. I just stopped answering. No dramatic announcement. No long speech about respect and boundaries. I simply deleted the group chat and turned off the guilt. Mason didn't ask about it right away. He was more focused on teaching our neighbor's cat how to high five, and explaining why triceratops were probably excellent huggers. But a few days later, he looked up from his cereal and asked, Is Grandma mad at me? I nearly dropped my coffee. No, buddy, I said carefully. Why would she be? She didn't say bye, he whispered, his spoon hovering over soggy flakes. She said I didn't help enough. I crouched down next to him. Hey, listen to me. You did nothing wrong. You were polite. You even raked leaves, which is, like, elite-level helpful. If someone didn't see that, it's not your fault. He blinked then nodded. Okay, he said. But I don't want to go back there. It smelled like old cheese. Deal, I said. And that was that. I threw myself into work, real, solid work. I had 2 clients lined up for custom dining tables and a lady who wanted a bookshelf. But make it sexy. I wasn't sure how sexy wood could be, but I smiled and figured it out. Business was slow but steady. Quiet, but peaceful. What wasn't peaceful? The sudden uptick in accidental texts from Mom. Karen, 2:12 p.m. Can you believe the price of chicken? Ridiculous. Karen, 2:13 p.m. Oops. Meant to send that to someone else. Grinning face with sweat. Karen, 2:14 p.m. How's Mason doing, by the way? Right. Then came the Facebook breadcrumbs. A post with a picture of Rocket holding a leaf rake captioned, Raising them right, flex biceps. Followed by 20 likes and a comment from Todd that just said, #character. I didn't reply. Didn't even open it. But I won't lie. It stung. Not because I wanted their approval, but because I used to. Because there was a time I thought if I just worked hard enough, or smiled through enough dinners, or built enough backyard benches for free, they'd finally look at me the way they looked at Todd. That illusion was gone now. And in its place? Just this weird, heavy calm. Weeks passed. Then months. Mason flourished. His drawings got wilder, dinosaurs in space, giraffes with laptops. He joined a kids' woodworking class at the local rec center. I picked him up after every session, and every time he'd shout, Dad! I made something sharp but safe! Like it was a magic spell. Meanwhile, the silence from my parents shifted. First, it was petty. I heard through a distant cousin that I overreacted. That I was being emotional, which, in my family, was code for not blindly compliant. Then came the guilt campaign. Aunt Jean called me, just to check in, and casually dropped, Your mom's been a little down lately. She says the house feels quiet. I almost said, maybe the leaf blower misses Mason. But I held my tongue. Then, in early spring, I got a voicemail from my dad. Let me be clear, my dad doesn't do voicemails. He thinks they're for people who can't text like grown-ups. So when I saw the red notification and his name blinking on my screen, I paused. Then played it. Eli. It's your father. Listen, we've had a rough few weeks. Todd's got some issues. Not important. But, if you have a minute, maybe we could talk. Mason, too. Tell him hi from Grandpa. All right. That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a vague, Todd's got some issues. Like that wasn't a weekly event. I didn't call back. Then came the kicker, A visit from Todd's wife, Lindsay. She showed up at my workshop unannounced. I was halfway through chiseling an edge on a walnut bench when the door creaked open. "Hi," she said. "Don't freak out. I'm not here to fight. You're literally in my sawdust," I replied. She sighed. "Look, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. Mason's a sweet kid. I didn't realize, well, I should have said something. That stopped me." "And Todd?" I asked. Her eyes rolled so hard they nearly reset her brain. "Still thinks parenting means occasionally yelling in the general direction of his kids. But he's struggling." "With what?" She hesitated. "They moved back in with your parents." I blinked. "What?" She nodded. "Lost their rental. Bad credit. Todd's in between jobs. The house is cramped. It's not good." I leaned back against the workbench. She looked at me, hesitant. "I think your mom's finally realizing you were the stable one." I didn't say anything. Just stared at the bench. Walnut. Solid. No cracks. The kind of thing that lasts. She turned to leave. Before she opened the door, she said quietly, "They might need help soon." I didn't respond. Because the truth? I already knew. The first real sign that things were falling apart came from the school office. Not Mason's school, Rocket's. Apparently, my mom listed me as an emergency contact for Todd's kids years ago. Just in case. And forgot to remove it. So when Rocket fell off the monkey bars and cracked a tooth during recess, I got the call. "Is this Mr. Eli Morgan?" the secretary asked. "Yes?" "Rocket took a fall. He's okay, but we can't reach his parents. You're listed on the form." I didn't wait for the rest. I told them I wasn't authorized anymore and suggested they try literally anyone else. Still, the fact that no one picked up said more than any voicemail. That night, I found myself staring at a picture Mason drew of our tiny living room. Just two stick figures, a couch, and a big, spiky dinosaur labeled Protection Dino. He'd hung it on the fridge without saying a word. I sat down across from him at the table. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad?" "What makes you ask that?" He shrugged. "They don't call. They used to send me stickers." My chest tightened. "They're just busy." "With what?" Good question. I didn't have an answer. And for the first time, I realized something. Mason was old enough now to notice the distance. Not just feel it. See it. And the longer I stayed silent, the more it would shape how he saw the people who claimed to love him, but only showed up when it was convenient. That same week, I got a text from my dad. One sentence. "Can we talk soon?" I didn't answer. Then came a message from Todd. "Look, man, I know things got weird. But we're all still family. We're trying our best over here." I nearly laughed. Todd trying his best was like a paper straw in a milkshake. Soggy and pointless. Still, I didn't delete the message. A few days later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. My mom's cursive always slanted like it was trying to escape the paper. Inside? A note, 2 paragraphs long. No apology. Just an update about how everyone's under one roof again. And it's a little chaotic, but we're doing what we can. Then a final line that said, "It would be nice to see you too. The house feels a bit emptier without Mason's little voice." As if she hadn't chewed that voice out to rake leaves while her favorite grandchildren played Mario Kart. I crumpled the letter and tossed it into the recycling bin. Then immediately pulled it back out and stuffed it in a drawer. Because here's the thing, I didn't want to go back. But I wanted them to understand why. And deep down, I wanted Mason to know that I didn't walk away for no reason. I wanted to show him that boundaries weren't just fences, they were blueprints for self-respect. The next weekend, I took Mason to the park. We built a little birdhouse at a community booth. He painted his purple. With green flames. I told him it looked like something Vin Diesel would hang in a tree. As we were leaving, I spotted someone across the street. "Dad." He was standing at the gas station pump, squinting at the screen like it had personally offended him. He looked older. Not in a sad way, just deflated. Like someone had let the air out of his back in my day speeches. He didn't see us. And I didn't wave. But Mason did. Just a little one. Then asked, "Do you think Grandpa misses us?" I answered honestly. "I think he's just starting to understand what he lost." And then, like fate had a sense of humor, came the knock. Not a message. Not a voicemail. A knock. At my actual front door. On a Thursday night. I opened it slowly, half expecting a delivery or a lost pizza guy. Instead, it was my mom. Hair frizzed. Eyes tired. No makeup. Holding a casserole dish like it was a peace treaty. Behind her stood Todd. Holding Rocket's hand. And then, trailing behind them both, my dad. They all looked, not desperate. Not broken. But uncertain. Like people knocking on a door they never had to earn access to before. And I just stood there. Silent. Waiting to see which version of them had shown up. The ones who barked orders at my son. Or the ones finally ready to listen. I didn't say a word. Just held the door. Todd looked like someone had cancelled his Wi-Fi. Mom had that brittle smile she saved for church and tax audits. And Dad, well, he was holding his hat in his hands, which I'd never seen him do unless someone had died. "What's going on?" I asked. Mom raised the casserole dish. "We brought dinner. I make dinner. It's tuna noodle. Your favorite." That was Todd's favorite. Silence. Then Todd cleared his throat. "Look, man, we just wanted to talk." He said it like we were two guys meeting up after a fender bender, not a family with 3 decades of uneven scales. Mason peeked around the corner, still holding a dinosaur toy. Mom smiled. "There's my sweet boy." Mason stared at her. Then stepped behind me. I didn't move. "You can come in," I said. "If this isn't about pretending nothing happened." That shut them up for a second. Then, slowly, they stepped inside. We sat around my small dining table, maple, hand-built, not a single squeak in the legs. They all looked slightly out of place. Todd kept glancing around like the furniture might judge him. Dad avoided eye contact. Mom finally spoke first. "Things have been hard," she said. "Todd and Lindsay, they lost their place. The job market's a mess. And well, the house isn't what it used to be. The water heater's out and the roof." "Mom," I cut in. "What do you want?" She blinked. "Just maybe a place to stay. For a while." That was the moment. No build-up. No apology. No real ownership. Just maybe a place to stay. Todd jumped in. "Just temporary. We're figuring things out. Rocket and Mila can sleep on the floor, they don't mind." "They should mind," I said. He frowned. "It's not like you don't have space. And it's not like you didn't have choices." The table went quiet again. Dad finally cleared his throat. "Eli, you're doing well. It's clear. You've got a good head on your shoulders. A decent setup. You've always been the independent one?" I finished. His mouth clamped shut. "I built this," I said, gesturing to the room, the table, the framed photo of Mason with glue on his face from a craft project. "Not because anyone helped me, but because no one did." Mom's voice cracked. "You always make us out to be villains." I looked at her. "Do you remember the last time we were at your house?" She nodded slowly. "Do you remember what you said to Mason when he showed you his drawing?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I was tired. He was 6. The silence stretched. I stood up. "Not angry. Just done. You treated my son like a chore and your other grandkids like royalty. And now you want me to open my door like none of that ever happened?" "We're still family," Todd said. I stared at him. "Funny. You only remember that word when you need something." He flinched, but didn't argue. Mason walked over, holding 2 juice boxes. He handed one to me and whispered, "Do we have to share our room?" I crouched next to him. "Not unless you want to." He nodded. "Okay. I don't." And that was it. I stood and faced them. I'm not heartless. But I have a kid to protect. So here's the deal. There's a motel 2 blocks from here. I'll pay for 3 nights. After that, you're on your own. Mom gasped. A motel? It has beds, plumbing, privacy, and most importantly, boundaries. Dad muttered something, but I didn't catch it. Todd looked like he wanted to argue, then looked at Mason, then back at me. "Thanks," he mumbled. I nodded once. "Don't thank me. Thank the version of me that doesn't hold grudges." They shuffled out. Mom tried to hug Mason. He took a step back. It was quiet for a moment. Then the door clicked shut behind them. I turned to Mason. He handed me his drawing again. "I made the dino bigger. For more stomping." I smiled. "Good. Some things deserve to be stomped." 3 nights. That's what I gave them. 72 hours in a motel that smelled vaguely like lemon cleaner and regret. It wasn't glamorous, but it had heat, water, and free cable, which, let's be honest, is all Todd really needed to feel alive. I didn't check in the first day. Or the second. But on the third evening, just as the sun dipped behind the storage units next to my workshop, I drove over. Not to lecture. Not to rescue. Just to see. Mason came with me. I figured if things looked too rough, we'd just keep driving and grab burgers instead. The motel parking lot was half empty. A couple of work vans. One guy in pajama pants smoking by the vending machine. I spotted my dad's car, still held together by duct tape and stubbornness, parked crooked near the back. Room 112. I knocked twice. Lindsay opened the door. She looked exhausted. Not messy, just worn. Like a person who hadn't finished a sentence in 3 days without someone yelling over her. "Oh," she said. "Hey." I nodded. "Just checking in." She stepped aside. "Come in if you want. But fair warning." The warning hit the moment I stepped inside. The room wasn't trashed, but it felt heavy. Like the walls were holding their breath. Todd was slumped in a chair by the TV, remote in one hand, eyes bloodshot. Rocket and Milo were on the bed, watching cartoons on mute while eating dry cereal out of hotel cups. My mom sat stiffly on the edge of a second bed, staring at her phone like it had betrayed her. Dad wasn't there. "Where's?" I started. "Looking for a job," she said quickly. "At least that's what he said. Took the car and left this morning." Todd finally looked up. "You happy now?" I blinked. "What?" "You got what you wanted. The mighty Eli. Kicking us out, keeping your precious space safe. Congrats." Mason clutched my hand. I gently moved him behind me. Lindsay sighed. "Todd." "No, I mean it," he said, voice rising. "You've always thought you were better. Just because you didn't screw up as loud as I did." "I didn't think I was better," I said. "I just got tired of pretending I wasn't drowning so you could keep floating." He stood up suddenly. "You're not perfect, man. Never said I was. But you act like it. Like your little workshop and juice boxes and wooden tables make you some kind of saint." I took a breath. "Actually," I said calmly, "they make me a man who pays his bills, shows up for his kid, and doesn't dump responsibility on everyone else." Silence. Even the muted cartoon seemed to pause. Todd sank back down. "I lost everything," he mumbled. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. But because I'd already offered help. And he treated it like punishment. I turned to Mom. "How long were you going to let this keep going?" She didn't answer. Just stared at the floor. Mason tugged on my arm. "Can we go now?" "Yeah, bud." Before I left, I looked at Lindsay. "Do you need anything?" She hesitated. "A break. Maybe a reset button." I pulled out my wallet. Handed her $200. "This is for the kids. Not for him." She nodded. Gratefully. No ego. As I opened the door to leave, Todd called out. You'll need help one day, too, you know. I turned. I already have help, I said. He's 6 and has better judgment than most adults in this room. We left. Got burgers anyway. Mason picked the booth by the window and ordered whatever has the most ketchup potential. While he dug into fries like they owed him rent, I stared out at the sunset. They weren't doing well. And a part of me, the son who used to wish for their praise, felt sorry for them. But the man I'd become? He felt something else entirely. Peace. Because for once, I wasn't waiting for them to see my worth. I had built it. With my own hands. And it didn't live in their house anymore. 3 days after the motel visit, it rained. One of those slow, soaking storms that made everything feel heavier. Mason was building a Lego fortress on the living room rug, complete with catapults and a dino-shaped throne, while I cleaned up dinner plates and scrolled through custom orders. That's when the knock came. Same door. Different silence. I opened it and immediately knew. They weren't just visiting this time. They were done. My dad looked soaked, his jacket clinging to him like wet paper. Mom had an umbrella, but it hung limp at her side like she'd forgotten how to use it. Todd stood behind them, holding a trash bag full of clothes, eyes down, like a kid caught shoplifting gum. Nobody spoke at first. Then Mom cleared her throat. The motel said we had to check out by noon. I waited. She tried again. There's nowhere else. Her voice wasn't dramatic. Just tired. Like someone finally admitting the floor gave out under them. We won't stay long, Dad added. Just a few nights. You've got that couch, right? Mason wandered into the hallway, holding a Lego dinosaur like a weapon. He froze when he saw them. Mom smiled weakly. Hi, sweetheart. He said nothing. Just stood closer to me. I looked at them, the whole crumbling facade of what used to be the proud part of the family, now dripping on my doormat like a half-forgotten delivery. Come in, I said. But I didn't move. You can come in if you understand something, I added. Todd shifted. Here we go. Quiet, I said. He did. I turned to my parents. This isn't just a roof. It's my roof. My rules. My son's space. You don't get to treat us like second class and then come walking back like it never happened. Mom opened her mouth, probably to say something about how they never meant it that way. I cut her off. Mason is watching. Always. And I won't let him see me bend just because blood showed up with wet shoes and bad timing. She flinched. But nodded. Todd set the trash bag down. You have, like, a spare blanket or... I pointed toward the closet. 3rd shelf. Don't touch the quilt. It's Mason's. They walked in slowly. The house suddenly felt tighter. Not crowded, just occupied by the weight of what hadn't been said. Mason stayed beside me. I knelt next to him. You okay? He nodded. Is Grandma staying here? For now. He thought about it. Can she sleep in the room with the creaky floor? Smart kid. I stood and helped them get settled. Gave Dad a towel. Showed Mom how to use the shower. Gave Todd the blow-up mattress I'd sworn I'd never use again after my back gave up on it during a camping trip. I didn't do it out of pity. I did it because control wasn't about shouting. It was about choosing. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of decaf and listened to the storm drip from the gutters. Mason was asleep in his room, curled up in his dinosaur pajamas with his fortress complete. My mom stepped outside, wrapped in a blanket. She sat next to me. For a long time, we didn't speak. Then she said softly, I wasn't fair to you. I looked at her. Why? She shook her head. Todd always needed more, or at least that's what I told myself. He struggled. He failed loudly. You just figured things out. So that made me less important? No, she said, then paused. But it made you easier to ignore. It wasn't an apology. But it was something. I thought if I didn't ask anything of you, I wasn't burdening you. she said. I didn't realize I was leaving you alone. I let the silence sit for a second. Then I said, he still doesn't get it, you know. She nodded. He might not for a long time. We sat there as the rain slowed. I didn't offer forgiveness. She didn't ask. But she didn't need to. Because she finally saw it, the life I'd built when no one was looking. And that was enough for now. The first morning was weird. I woke up to the smell of burned toast and the sound of Todd arguing with the coffee machine. I pressed the thing. Why is it blinking? Mason poked his head out of his room. Because you didn't put water in it. Todd stared at him, then back at the machine. Right. Mason looked at me like, can we send him back to the motel? Over the next few days, the house adjusted like it had a stiff neck. Dad kept mostly to himself, sitting in the garage flipping through newspapers he didn't subscribe to. Mom tried to be helpful, doing laundry, folding towels like she was auditioning for a hotel job. But Todd? Todd was a toddler with stubble. He griped when the Wi-Fi was slow, even though he didn't pay a dime for it. He rolled his eyes when Mason asked him to play. He hogged the bathroom. Twice, I caught him leaving dishes in the sink like they'd magically walk into the dishwasher. I didn't yell. I just reminded. Firmly. This wasn't a crash pad. It was a second chance. And second chances come with rules. One night, I found Mason sitting at the table with his math homework while Todd scrolled through his phone on the couch. I nodded toward him. You gonna help? Todd didn't look up. Not my kid. No, I said. But it's your niece and nephew watching you. That got a glance. He stood up. Muttered something about needing air. Slammed the door on his way out. Mason shrugged. He's kinda loud for someone who doesn't do anything. Couldn't argue with that. But here's the thing, I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to humiliate them or throw it in their faces. I just wanted peace. And maybe, for once, proof that who I'd become was never because of them, but in spite of the way they treated me. The funny part? That proof came in the smallest things. Like when Dad asked me where I bought the flooring because it actually held up better than his. Or when Mom complimented Mason's manners and said, he's so patient. Just like you. Or when Lindsay texted me privately, asking if I knew anyone hiring part-time admin help, because she was tired of being someone else's problem. I gave her a name. No promises. Just a lead. That same night I got a text from a client. One of my biggest yet, a boutique hotel downtown wanted a full custom set of lobby pieces. Big order. Months of work. 5 figures. I didn't tell anyone right away. I just stared at the message for a long time. Not because of the money. But because 10 years ago, I was building tables out of scrap plywood in a storage unit that smelled like mice and bad ideas. And now? Someone wanted my designs in a luxury hotel. When I finally told Mason, he said, "Does that mean I get a raise in my allowance?" "Sure," I said. "You're promoted to executive sandpaper officer." He pumped his fist like he'd won a Grammy. That night, as I walked past the guest room Todd was using, I overheard him on the phone. "No, I'm not working yet. It's complicated. I'm staying with my brother for now, yeah, the successful one." His voice dripped with sarcasm. But for once, it didn't sting. It didn't feel like a jab. It sounded like someone who knew the roles had flipped, and he wasn't the main character anymore. And honestly, that was enough. Because the final moment was still coming. And they had no idea what was waiting just behind the next door. It happened on a Saturday. One of those clear spring mornings that felt like the world had hit refresh. Mason and I had just finished sanding a small bookshelf he wanted to paint. Lava red with mystery spots. When Mom peeked her head out from the guest room. "There's someone at the door for you," she said. "Looks official." I wiped my hands and walked to the front door. Standing there was a man in khakis with a clipboard and a contractor badge. "Hi there. Eli Morgan?" "Yeah. We're just finalizing permits for the expansion next door. Looks like you're listed as the adjacent property owner." Just need a signature for easement clarification. I blinked. Expansion? He pointed across the street. To my parents' old house. The one Todd had lost to foreclosure. It was under renovation. New siding. Fresh gravel. Temporary fencing with a private property, management only sign. I signed the form, handed it back, and closed the door slowly. Mom was behind me. I didn't know it sold, she said quietly. Foreclosure auction. Few weeks back, I replied. Todd shuffled in, yawning. Someone renovating the house? Yep. He glanced through the blinds. Wonder what loser bought that dump. I smiled. Didn't say a word. Because I was that loser. I'd bought it 2 weeks ago. In cash. And not for nostalgia. Foreclosure. The first thing I did? Removed the rusted rake from the side yard. The same one they made Mason drag across dried leaves while Rocket played Minecraft with the volume maxed out. I replaced it with a swing set. A bright blue one. Big enough for Mason and his future. That evening, I took Mason by the hand. We walked across the street. I thought we weren't allowed here, he said. We weren't, I said. But things change. I let him run across the yard. He jumped on the swing like he was born to fly. Laughed like he hadn't laughed in weeks. Mom watched from the porch. Todd walked up behind her. Whose swing is that? Mine, I said. All of it is. They blinked. You bought the house? Mom asked. I nodded. For what? For peace. For Mason. For everything they didn't protect, and everything I will. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat on the porch alone. A cool breeze rustled the new grass. The street was quiet. I didn't need an apology anymore. Because I had something better. A son who'd never have to question his worth.